And I'm like, wait, hold on a second. And I analyze what I'm doing, and what I've been doing is, well, you know Cody Rhodes' walk-on music?
Yes, of course. How could I not?
So I'm sitting there. Feel free to skip ahead, non-wrestling people. I'm sitting there singing his own. I don't know what the words to his songs are, but I'm just like,
Brady-boo! Brady-boo!
Adrenaline in my soul. Every thought out of control.
so you suck a dick, and then you suck a couple more, then you grab a tit, and then you throw it on the floor, and you bam, skip, frame, right, and then you work it all night, and I got your body, frame, frame. Dance with me. And like, those are not the same song.
They're not. You morphed into something else I recognize.
Talk to me, boys. And then it's a fucking Justin Timberlake song. Is it called Dance With Me? Does it have a different? Is that even Justin Timberlake?
Honestly, you're also in the rhythm. Like, we're in such basic pop song structure at this point. Like, you almost are at American Woman, but like the Lenny Kravitz version.
Very different melody, but if you take that same an American woman, a dick, and then you suck a couple crap on me, and then you throw them on the American woman.
Hello, Dry Scale, Pebble, and Schoenbreaker. Welcome to Last Minute Politics. I'm Dragor.
I am Pepper.
I tweaked my neck doing hip thrusts today.
Come on, that doesn't make sense.
If
you say it this way.
If you're a fucking broken meat robot like me, it does. No joke. I did barbell squats that went perfect. I have fucked up knees, feet, and a hip. And what goes crazy? I shrug too hard during a hip thrust.
I had more trying really hard to pop my back. Like, it's popping someone's back who's the same or lower height than you, or even kind of close, is pretty easy. But if someone's like a full foot taller than you, like me to everyone, he'll be like, oh, let me do the thing. And like, more right now, you could crack, I guess, my pelvis or like my lower vertebrae, which is not what I'm looking for. So he was doing, but he knows, he's like a trained massage therapist, so he knows a few more moves than like your average person. So like, okay, give me your arm, pull it over here. Now pull up your knee, you're gonna go over here. And they like twisted me in both directions at the same time, and it didn't hurt at all.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I guess we'll end this topic on, there was an episode of Kung Fu, The Legend Continues. And David Carradine's character's in some office waiting. Some dude's there, like, complaining about neck issues. And he's like, stand up. And he just carefully, like, moves his head around and is, like, doing kind of what you just described and then turns it just right. And then the Foley artist does the crumpling a water bottle neck crack. And then the guy's like, oh, I don't need to see the doctor anymore. Thanks. And he walks away. And that is literally what happened to me. So, Pepper, I was at your place. I woke up with the fucked neck. More worked on me with the messed up neck. Everything gets better except the neck pain. I pop my own neck and it goes away.
Ooh.
But if you were to go to an American healthcare doctor, they would prescribe you potentially a muscle relaxer if they didn't think you were drug seeking. They would make you go through physical therapy for months before ever doing any kind of scan to know up front if anything's wrong. Because we've deemed scans are expensive. They're not, actually, but I wasn't actually prepared to go into medical stuff like this right now, but here we are.
Well, hey, oh yeah, people who are listening in right now and haven't before, they're like, oh, wow, listen to this shenanigans. Yeah, this is the kind of nonsense that you get to hear that gets like trimmed from the front and the ends of these shows. And if you want to hear the kind of stuff that gets edited out, it's usually not, if it was valuable, it wouldn't get edited out, but it is fun occasionally. Join our Patreon. It's $1. You can hear our recordings live. We have a little commie reading group called Bible Study where we read fundamental socialist texts and just general hangout stuff. If there's something that we want to do that involves politics and we want to do with a small group of people who we know will kind of like be down with it and may not belong on like public Twitter or whatever, we will do it here. We marathoned all the Matrix movies the other day. That was a fun time. They work really well as a marathon.
You are like, if you've never seen them before, sure, but it's a steep drop off as it goes on.
Yo, I had a freaking great time, like from moment one to maybe.
Okay,
maybe
you
I
had a
to
great
smoke
time with
correct
the
amount of
original
weed.
trilogy, and then what did you say to me when I asked, like, hey, I'm thinking of doing a watch along for the fourth one in Animatrix, and you go, oh, I'll watch it again. I fell asleep halfway through. Great endorsement.
Look, the Mayfortrix more put on when I was a little sleepy, and it's kind of like two movies.
Did you
like
say
the first bit, and the second bit.
Mayfortrix?
The Mayfortrix is what I call it. Oh yeah, any movie that has a 4 in it now because of Fan 4 Stick. Remember the Fantastic Four movie where they did the logo? Like everything is, you have to just jam the word 4 in there if it's multisyllabic.
I know.
I'm listening to people talk about the Mayfortrix, and I'm getting a better. I don't know. It's you can do this with almost any media. If you think hard enough, you can find a reading that you enjoy. But my first time going through it, I'm like, okay, where this is like no spoilers, by the way. I'm not gonna. I don't even know how you would go about spoiling. I have to explain Matrixes 1, 2, and 2 and 3. Everybody understands Matrix 1 already. The more I hear about it and the way it deals with like nostalgia and how people feel about how things get like recuperated in the system, and it's very meta. It talks about like it's very obvious Wachowski talking about her own experience. It's only one Wachowski. The other one didn't want to do it.
Yeah,
I think it's Laura. I was
don't
say
know.
the one with pink hair, but do they both have pink hair? Occasionally,
I don't really know what the Wachowskis look like. I just happen
shorter
to know that they're both trans, and like, I guess in the best way possible. It like, other than I want to broaden my horizons and experience more media from not cishet people, but outside of that, like, it's also not impactful to me in any way, which I like is also good. Does that make sense?
I guess I would recommend, instead of watching the Mayfortrix, go watch Speed Racer the movie, which is a better Wachowski film.
That's what I keep hearing.
Have people awoken to that yet? Freaking Aaron Hansen of Game Grumps went on. He's like, "Oh, my favorite movie is Speed Racer." I'm like, "Oh, this is like a meme or a joke or sarcastic." And then he went on and explained for like half an hour exactly why. And then I'm like, "Okay, let's watch this movie. It's so good." Like from an animation, like a visual. It's not technically animation. It's not animated, but there's enough 3D stuff going on. It's basically an animated movie with some live action people in it. It feels like a reverse Roger Rabbit, where you have some. Well, I guess that's just most Marvel movies too, where it's like a couple human faces stuck into cartoons.
Yes. Well, we've
not
established, because the
movie.
animation industry does have unions and the computer animation industry does not.
Hey, it depends like what you're doing for who. But yeah, Speed Racer, super good, and it has a very like anti-corporate message, unshockingly.
I like it.
All right, I had one other dumb throwaway line I wanted to before we jump into things. So this is my intro line I wrote. I was just like walking around.
I love this when you sent it.
You're a leftist when you start. This is Star Trek shit, by the way. You're a leftist when you start thinking that you live on Ferengi. You're an American communist when you realize that you live on Cardassia Prime. Which I bring up because I'm going to be mentioning imperialism more and more often, because like as I'm assuming that most people listening to this who are well, I mean, you're obviously English speaking or you're getting nothing out of this. You either live in the US, Canada, maybe the EU, but you're probably in what people would call like a capital W Western nation, meaning you live in the imperial center, in the imperial core. You'll hear me throwing that around too, as opposed to the countries that you could say third world country, or you could say the imperial periphery, which I enjoy because it's like more specific. It like means something. Like Sweden is not the imperial periphery, but once you get to like Kazakhstan, imperial periphery. Also, Kazakhstan's shit is going down. I can't even comment because I have no idea what, but check it out and resist any narratives of like America should invade Kazakhstan. Like, be conscious of, don't get fucking Djangoismed.
Yeah.
Don't be like, yeah, war. Like, check yourself. But check out some stuff about Kazakhstan. By the time this comes out, we'll probably know a little more. But in this little fucking joke I do, the Ferengi are the like capitalism species, but like in a comedic way. Like Dragor.
All right, hang on. Let me be the resident nerd. It's when the Ferengi first show up, they get the bad rap of essentially being portrayed as icky, evil space Jews. You also have to keep in mind that like the people writing and running Star Trek are also Jews, so it's like, don't know what they were going for. but they weren't taken seriously when they first showed up. Even when they first showed up, they were meant to be taken seriously. So that stink has kind of lasted. Their first appearance didn't go great.
I miss the whips.
So you get to Deep Space Nine, and every major species in Star Trek essentially is a monoculture, but a facet of the society we live in today. So the Ferengi aren't just capitalism. They're this bottled, idealized version of capitalism that makes it to space travel.
It never goes any deeper than just money. Like,
well, it's not that it goes any deeper than money in that
the Ferengi
in this, you're using money as the paragon of the focal point of society. Just like when you watch a wrestling show, the wrestling ring is the paragon and focal point of that whole universe. With Klingons, it's about honor and battle, but as you get deeper, at least into the Klingon shit, the battle isn't always physical.
Sure.
And then when you bring up Cardassians, that's the
weird thing. The Ferengi analogy almost falls apart because, like, it's obvious. It's very obvious. Like, capitalism parody. Like, all their episodes go, isn't it ridiculous that you have to just pay to fucking exist on this planet? You're like, wow, it's just like America. But if you go any deeper than that, there are episodes where they talk about labor relations. There is an episode where they form a union, and one of the fucking Ferengi starts quoting the Communist Manifesto. Very funny.
Yes.
It's not played as a joke. It's funny, interesting.
Yes.
But you get freaking Worf with these lines. He's like, even Ferengi never like did slavery. Like he starts like criticizing North American colonialism.
Yes.
So
throughout
like they
Deep Space
defang.
Nine, it's kind of what you said. It's a throwaway line here and there, and even Quark several times. Like it is canon to Ferengi culture that the reason their capitalism worked is they went, oh, you actually have to believe money is the thing. And the commentary against us is that money is a tool to us. They actually believe in the golden halls in the sky as the part of the paragon of money. Like, no, we actually went all in on money. You humans never did.
They want the physically literal money. They just want
yes.
They just want to rub dollars on their face. That's what they want. Like.
And so like what is it? The Ferengi basically, I forget how far into the series it is, but it's essentially canon that the Ferengi are pacifists. It's not, it falls apart when you look too deep into things as usual with Star Trek, but like by default, they don't have warships. They don't believe in fighting because why would you fight?
They don't fight anybody.
You can have other people fight and you'll profit from them.
But like, isn't it like rule whatever is war is profitable and the next one is peace is profitable?
Yes.
Okay, but so as you start thinking about it, the like Star Trek fantasy race that seems to be a little closer to that, the Cardassians, who throughout like they start out as like the space Nazis because they have like a whole planet that's kind of like a concentration camp, and now
they start out as the space Nazis, but it's fucking us in the Middle East, damn it.
Yeah, it's if you like actually flip it, you end up going to Cardassia Prime, which is their thing, and they have these like phony baloney kangaroo courts where they just convict dissidents without a they have a trial, but it's like a phony baloney trial. I'm like, oh, that sounds like America. And then like if you look at its aggressive expansion and colonization and kicking people off worlds, and like there's a resource over there, we're taking it. I'm like, fuck, this is just current modern neoliberal imperial capitalism. They are the one, but if you go to the Cardassians who live on the planet, they'll be like, oh, it's very nice here. As long as you follow the rules, don't make any trouble, you can have a decent life. Like those in the imperial core. Yet there are still obviously on Cardassia like those who are downtrodden and broke and do not fit into the system, like those who can't fit into their creepy hierarchy. And freaking by the end of it, they end up having their like imperial center revolution after they peel off all of the periphery. Which I don't think I have a big spiel on that now, but I do believe that mirrors the kind of tactics that may be most effective in our current reality, or at least what people who seem to know what the fuck they're talking about tell me. I want to jump into current events though.
On eve of 2022 session, resignations, death, taking toll on Republican majority in Missouri. So, what does that mean? The Republicans in the Missouri House are set to enter the 2022 legislative season without the veto-proof majority they have wielded for nearly a decade. There are ways to do special elections and things, but it seems the governor's office is not going to do that. So let's get into a little bit of numbers. The Missouri House has 163 districts. 114 have been represented by Republicans and 49 were represented by Democrats. They had the supermajority status since 2012. In order to override a veto or pass an emergency clause, 109 votes are needed. So what has happened?
It's unfortunate how many German last names there are in the
reading
Missouri
this,
Republican caucus.
yeah. So
Oh yes, Mr. Reber, Mr. Greichheimer.
the whole article basically is long form to get to enough people have resigned, died, and vacated that they don't have the veto anymore, and the governor is looking like they're looking to push things through that previously would have just been outright vetoed because Republicans band together no matter what. And so it's just I don't have much commentary other than assuming this goes the way I want it to and that things get passed that actually help people. It sure is funny that direct action isn't what did it, but just COVID killing people did.
Yeah, it seems like a coincidental good news things, which seem to be the only way that we get good news within bourgeois American politics, like the politics we have with Democrats and Republicans. Because your knee-jerk thing is to go like, haha, the Republicans cannot do X and Y, which means now the Democrats can. And then you go, oh yeah, the Democrats also suck. And if you're a Missouri winning Democrat, you think you're going to be an ultra-progressive, you think you're a fucking socialist up there? No, absolutely not. So I'm trying to resist the whole like, haha, fuck them, they're dead due to their bad morals, which is where your like knee-jerk thing tends to go. We were talking about this before the thing, Drag, where like I've noticed a phenomenon amongst like the average people that I still engage with who aren't like coworkers, people I happen to see in my day-to-day life who aren't furries, aren't fucking commies, and aren't like politically. COVID has become like a weird, embarrassing thing that you don't like admit to, and you like, oh, I don't know if I can say, but I think they got COVID. Because from both directions, if you're on the Democrat side, you go, oh, well, obviously the people who are getting COVID are the people not being careful, the people not getting vaccines, the people not wearing masks, etc. And if you're on the Republican side, you're supposed to pretend that COVID isn't real.
so let's immediately break. Let's break right into this, and if it gets out or what have you, oh well, I'll eat shit for when I do. I learned recently my aunt and uncle are Trumpers and anti-vaxxers. They both got Omicron, didn't get hospitalized. They got really fucking lucky. And they're going to continue to be their dumb fuck selves of being anti-vaxxers. Fine, whatever. This is what we talk about when we're upset with individual choices. Now, let's talk about one of their kids, my oldest cousin and her husband and their kids. Her husband works in government. He had to get vaccinated right away and is on top of booster. So did she. Why did their household get COVID? Because their kids were forced to go to school. Are they bad because of this? No. Did they have any power or control over being safe? They would get in trouble if they didn't get set up to do homeschooling right. If they just didn't send their kids in, there is a system in place to punish them.
That is a crime. Yeah. It is illegal to just say my kids aren't coming to school.
So, now what?
Well, we have this tendency on, I want to say the right and the left, but what we in America know as the right and the left, if you know shit about fuck, there's two sides of capital. They're essentially two different brands of liberal who have just kind of taken capital L liberal, not meaning to the left of Hitler, which is what everyone means when they fucking say Hitler, fucking liberal. But
our disclaimers keep getting more and more comical to me.
I know.
Like anyone in 100 fucking years, if someone were to unearth this, they would still know about Hitler because it was a big world event and all that shit. And then some lefty furry jackass is gonna go, no, we don't mean just liberal as in left of Hitler. Like that had to get said.
That's the thing. Capital L liberal, meaning like free economies, pro-capitalist, pro-imperialist war, resource extraction, all that shit. Republicans and Democrats always agree on that. If you'll notice, in this time that we weren't getting the Build Back Better bill passed, we got the big military budget passed again, because we will never not get the military budget passed because all of the people in power agree that we should be doing these things.
I would like to segue in a common argument that I have with this, and I don't really have an answer to it, so I'd like to hear your gut reaction take. Whenever I bring up military budget spending, a lot of people agree, at least even capital L liberals, like us, people, agree that we shouldn't spend as much on it, And as soon as you assert that, like, okay, well, then they should stop fucking voting for it, it immediately falls back to, but then they won't get elected again.
We have moralized COVID. We've politicized COVID, but I think the real big issue is that we have the greater issue, the way I like to think of it, is that we have moralized it. Like, we try to moralize every issue, and not every issue really should be moral. Because, like, when you actually start getting down to frickin' brass tacks, these don't become moral issues; they're material issues. So, like, you have people on the capital O left who who view getting COVID as a sign of irresponsibility and that you are bad. It is yet another category. It just falls on top of, if you have COVID, I have seen this, I'm not exaggerating, where people are like, oh, they probably have COVID and they're probably racist and they probably hate gay people. And you're like, are those all just the same thing now? Have COVID, anti-vax, racist, are these just all, do words mean fucking nothing? And yes, they do. Yes, they do the exact same shit on the right, but they don't like hide behind it. They're like, we love Jesus. So it's a pure, they start with the moral argument and they're like, yes, the moral argument is the whole argument. And that's why I don't shit on them. It's not that I don't shit on them as much. It's just like, we already know that part. We're supposed to be the ones who who believe in science, right? We all believe in science. Go to school, assholes. We all believe in science. CDC has shortened the amount of time you can, like, I end up repeating myself. But the more we try to make things into fucking moral arguments, the more time we spend trying to like root out, oh, you're the bad thinker. I'm less interested in finding out who has like the bad opinions and more like who does the bad things. Especially when it comes to people who have no freaking power over anything. If you've taken direct actions to hurt people, like, yeah, stop. But like, if we keep along this weird path of, to put it in, if we expect the perfect proletariat, the perfect ruling class, if we start going around like, oh, this person's had COVID, that means they're like bad and I have to cut them out of my life. I don't know. I have people who work with me who, again, because of the same shit, I can't like say, oh, it was this person, they have COVID, because there are people might know on here. But like, I know people who've had COVID. I've been very, very lucky. These people have done every precaution. It's just like fucking smoking cigarettes. Like, some people smoke a pack a day their whole lives and have nothing. Some people smoke occasionally and die of lung cancer. It's not a moral thing.
Well, and even then, the fact that you brought up cigarettes is fucking perfect, because the whole thing is designed and exploited. Like, the addictive properties are designed and exploited. So when someone smokes a pack a day, we ascribe this moral failing to them, but science, time after time after time, the thing that we on the left are supposed to believe in, say how fucking difficult it is to kick that particular addiction and habit. And so, like, well, which is it? And make no mistake, all right, let's go with let's do the Kamala Harris and go with the specific example to evoke emotion. If you know someone in your life that smokes a shit ton and you are close enough to them where you can say, yeah, and they also have never genuinely tried, well, that's that person's individual struggle and or potential failing, not all smokers. Because I don't know about you, but every smoker I know has attempted quitting at least once, if not more. Like, sincerely. So is it a personal failing that so many people fail to quit smoking? Or is there a system and other thing at place that has little to do with the individual?
It's also funny because like there are companies that directly profit. The tobacco industry directly profits from, not so much in America because they don't do all their sales over here. Besides, it's in vape now. But not that someone sells COVID, but there are many, many large companies that benefit from COVID, not from COVID continuing, but from preventative measures against COVID not being fully taken, like staying open, just fucking full steam ahead, no matter what economy shit. And hey, this is still on COVID, so I'm throwing it in here. Guess what the number one killer? So you see a thing where it's like record high number of Border Patrol agents died this year, and you're like, oh shit, are Mexicans just fucking killing all these Border Patrol people? Because that's how the headline is meant to make you think, right? Like, oh wow, it's just a dangerous job. These dangerous illegals are out here. It's all COVID. They all died of COVID. There was one who like got shot by their wife, and he may have been beaten up the way, like, you know what I mean? And then there's an autoerotic asphyxiation, and it sounds like I'm joking. That's what it was. The number of like, I was beat to death by a Honduran with a rock is 0. The number of I was shot by a Honduran with a gun, 0.
The only way that happens is after the video we saw where someone on their fucking horse fails and drops it. In which case...
Yeah, they fall off their horse. That guy did he die?
Oh gosh.
I linked the thing in the chat. That's another thing. Hey, you can see all the links we threw up. I mean, it's not hard for you
I
to
will
find.
get
It's
to.
on
We're
Tucson.com.
almost there with me posting the footnotes. We're almost there. It's close. Pepper can attest. It's getting
You
there.
need like a full-time secretary. Okay, we have like Chad McBroom, and this isn't me saying that he's a morally bad person, but it shows the kind of just I don't really give a shit, and it's like you shouldn't be out there doing this job. McBroom, 47 when he died, made local news in April when he spoke out against a mask mandate at a school board meeting and refused to stop speaking when his 2 minutes ended. So this dick shows up and he's like, I'm gonna talk as long as I fucking want. I don't. I both respect authority because I am authority, and that's like built into my shit. But also, if you, the city, like fucking school board, is like, your time's up. Fuck you, I'm American. Soldiers, to some degree, have a lot of sympathy from me. Customs and Border Patrol and ICE have far less. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because if you're a soldier, you're probably like recruited as a teen. You might be just super broke. This is your only way out of poverty. I mean, most of the military is made up of like Latino guys, like Native Americans and shit. Like, it's not like me, obviously. So, and they don't go there because they love the military and hate Muslims. They do it because, like, I'm broke, and in high school, every year, this nice guy keeps coming by and tells me how much money I'll make if I join the army. Customs and Border Patrol is a little different. They do recruit, and they'll be like, oh, we don't have enough people, and they aren't, like, well-trained enough. And it's like, all right, put me on a new topic, because I have nowhere good to go from here.
Okay. The other one I was going to do, last COVID-related, really quick, is the Brooklyn Nets have officially ended their tug-of-war with Kyrie Irving over the star point guard's vaccination status. And Irving, who has refused to get a COVID-19 shot, is unquestionably the winner. I don't really need to go much more into this, other than the whole article and the whole thing is about these systems in place can enforce and eject him. Like, they can just...
Dragger, have you considered that Kyrie Irving is just a Trump-supporting white supremacist?
So I bring this up not because I want to shit on Kyrie Irving, because that is the person that has the least amount of power in the situation. Do I think that person should get the vaccine? And barring, like the valid fears of government's gonna do shitty things to me, but like outside of that, as an individual, yeah, that's his problem and his failing. But why is the entirety of this huge NBA, and the NFL's doing similar, why is the entirety of the NBA just letting this happen? Because money. It's the only answer, right? Why wouldn't they stick to the safety of their players and attendees? Like, they laid out the rules. They said, you can't do these things if you don't get vaccinated. And he called their bluff. Capital matters more.
And that's not even really the league. It was only because the city of New York was like, look, that's a city stadium, so we can just do this. If it was just the NBA, they probably would have been like, fuck it, we don't care. I mean, we also what the NFL did to Aaron Rodgers, which was nothing, which is funny because Aaron Rodgers, big famous quarterback guy, a couple like random grunt players who happen to be black, all got like suspended immediately for their COVID lies. And then Aaron Rodgers got like a fine and nothing because what are you going to do? Pull out Aaron Rodgers? Kyrie Irving is a big star, but like, this is where you get this weird kind of like, is this a worker rights thing? Because technically Kyrie Irving, he is an employee. He's definitely a part of what you would call like the labor aristocracy. Like, Kyrie Irving is one of the highest paid players in the entire NBA also.
Yep.
And if this was a random fucking bench player, they would just be sitting at home on the couch right now, no longer a member of the NBA. And all of these are like factors in the thing. Kyrie Irving is being told by his employer to receive a medical procedure that he doesn't want to do. If you look into all of the historical reasons that African-American communities would have for vaccine hesitancy, and if you look at the stats of people who are the least vaccinated, it's Hispanic and black people currently in the U.S. Like, Asians are kicking ass. They're like 90% at this point. Like, what? And white people are only a little bit above that. And then it's like, oh, well, who do you get your data from? And what? But in general, it seems to be that if you're like, unvaccinated person, and you immediately picture a guy in a MAGA hat who is white and lives in the South, the living in the South part is probably kind of accurate. But other than that, like, this is part of the whole moralizing of COVID shit. We just want to attach COVID to all the bad people in the world, and it doesn't work out if you do that. I do not have like it definitely should have done this with the NBA situation, except for there should be absolutely no pro sports happening right now, at least not with audiences. What the fuck? And instead, oh my God, the NHL is heinous. They've had to cancel games all over the place. The NFL is having to add weeks 18 and 19 and do games like, oh fuck, where can we play this? Like, it's clearly a bad idea, and they just keep doing it anyway because money. The real answer is Kyrie Irving should not be fucking making these decisions at all. He should be unvaxxed sitting in his mansion. Like,
Agreed.
not playing
Absolutely.
a season right now.
The other one I saw is for whatever World Open thing that's going on in Australia, some unvaccinated person is being barred from entry into the country over it. So like the group doing the sports thing were like, oh yeah, you can do it. And then Australia, the government said, hey, medical experts,
Jokovic.
should we allow this? And the medical experts, the doctors, said no. And so then the government took the medical recommendation and then said no. So this is like
And remember,
the only instance
Australia.
I can think of in recent memory where a government did their fucking job of protecting their people.
Australia is just as capitalist as we are. If this is ever like a
I know.
freaking-
Look,
just
I'm
keep
aware.
this in-
I'm just
that's not
using,
for you. That's for everybody else.
This is
So nobody
just,
goes like, oh, Australia, the utopia.
All right, this segues into another thing that I wanted to bring up a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's that we've talked about it before. There are different levels of capitalism. And while all of them require extraction and suffering of others, if you are also a harm reduction person, there are ways where the bougie bitches can stay in power and still uplift almost fucking everyone. So,
Talking about social democracy.
not so much social democracy as it could still be authoritarian as fuck, and still the bottom line, the barest minimum of living, can still be raised.
When I throw around social democracy, I mean like Sweden, etc., where they are still fully capitalist and still fully have a ruling owning class, they just make more concessions for them. What you described, they can stay in power, and everyone can still have a better life. And not everyone though. Everyone within the imperial core can have a better one. Hey, that word came back. See,
So this, I really want to follow up on this, but essentially this whole article is so Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia said it's called the Ayushman Bharat scheme, which is just like a name of a policy and group of plans that enables poor people to afford the treatment at the same hospital that the well-off, as this article translate, I think is what's going on here. The verbiage in this is a little interesting. But essentially, they're just basically talking about either some M4... What's the number one thing we say? Hey, you shitty fucking Democratic senator, we'll stop lighting your ass up if I can get the same health care your kid does. It's that. And it's like being put into practice. I don't know. This was just a short thing of like... The contradictions I continue to see is here in the United States, we could do a Ferengi just a little bit more, and the ruling class would buy themselves so much more time of like there is appeasement is now off the table is really the way I would describe it, right? What did Churchill say? Americans will do the right thing only after they've tried everything else. Well, we're not even doing the right thing anymore. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. That's just kind of like I am back to not understanding why other places seem to do what I would call the barest minimum to allow the machine to continue, and we do not. And I don't understand what the motive is, right? So I don't actually presume that Jeff Bezos in his head is going, I'm choosing to be a supervillain. I don't think Bill Gates does it. They all functionally are to the rest of us, but like when I want to do the class analysis, why are the ruling people doing this thing that's seemingly accelerating outright collapse? Do they not understand it? Do they not see it? Do they not care? Like what's going on? What are they afraid of, or what is their motive to not do anything?
well, so like India is another capitalist country who a lot of capitalist stands will point to and go, oh look at all the progress India has made because of capitalism. Like they used to be so broke, and now it's like, well, the arguments are, what do you mean used to be? And going with this, instances where like India has its own ruling class. Obviously, it has a bunch of billionaires, kind of like we do. They are a mover and shaker. They are a very large economy with over 1 billion people now, right? Live in India.
Oh yeah.
So this is an example. They aren't. They do not have the level of development that we do. Like India is not an imperial core country. I guess maybe like if you do it's like its own little mini empire of India and countries around it. But like the Indian standard of living is not what the American one is. Like we have humongous poverty here as well. That's like inexcusable and disgusting. But we do not yet have like the fucking sprawling slums that are directly next to the freaking fantasy skyscrapers. Like everyone is. I'm certainly seeing if you've watched freaking Slumdog Millionaire or even just seen pictures of India at all. Like it's one of the most. I'm not saying something controversial to say that there is massive income inequality within India. This is an illustration of how, like you were saying, how easily good things could be done without even disrupting. Like this does not disrupt the owning. I'm sure the owning class Indians will not actually be getting the same treatment at same place. This is more like middle class, like people who at least have a freaking running water, electricity. The Indian middle class will get the same treatment as the ultra poor. Like the power relations are the most important thing. Unless this does something that hurts or strikes at the global bourgeois or even just the Indian bourgeois, the best this can possibly be is like mitigating half measure concessions that I'm sure will go away. Like as soon as COVID's over, I don't think they go, oh yeah, our healthcare system forever now is you can all just go to the same place. Because I'm assuming that means India, kind of like us, has a very lopsided healthcare system where if you have more money, you get better treatment.
I truly don't know, other than like from the doctor and tech side, India continues to massively boom with doctors and medical research, which again is why Bill Gates and all of those shitty people are like, the United States has to ensure this quality, and that's why we're keeping control of the patents. Like, they could outproduce us. Part of the reason we have Omicron is because the United States ruling class went out of their way to hobble the world's ability to advance vaccine making and distribution.
So I've heard a tiny bit about on this topic, which, hey, great. So, you know, Cuba has its own. Cuba also is a big like medical care and doctor just exporter country.
Yeah,
it's a good scheme and a good idea. And I say scheme not in a negative sense. It's a good plan, and it freaking definitely works for their PR. But they just make it. If you want to be a doctor in Cuba, you can pretty much become one, unless you just can't fucking do the studying. I guess like going to medical school. Far easier. Does not require $200,000 American dollars plus to get a medical degree in Cuba. And then they export their doctors fucking everywhere. Well, not everywhere, to mostly to third world countries. Like they are out there actually trying to strike at the imperial periphery. Haiti. So Haiti does not have a great vaccination rate. Like they don't have they would be what we in the US, we would call them like, oh, these are anti-vax, like science deniers, like the Haitian population in general, because they have been fucked by imperialism so directly, like for so long. They don't trust, like if the US showed up at Cuba and said, here's a bunch of vaccines, a bunch of Haitians would probably be like, no, we don't fucking, like, it's like if the French showed up, you're like, get the fuck out of here. Like we did a whole revolution against you. But the Cubans, they'll take their vaccine because they've demonstrated like, hey, we aren't here to fuck you. We're here to doctor and like tell you about communism.
Yeah.
Like, here's your shot. Like
Gosh, the conversion rates for proselytizing for communism versus Christianity sure are different. Here's a Bible and no food and fuck you. Here's a vaccine and here's how you fix your shit and fuck the Americans.
It's a little wild to believe that we could roll into like Iraq and be like, here's some shots, has an American flag on it, and that people wouldn't go, what? Ugh. Like it's like if people here were like, the vaccine, and it had a swastika on it, and you're like, come get the Nazi vaccine. Like, people would be like conscious. I don't even care if that shit works or not. I refuse to accept assistance from, like, that's the attitude you end up getting in a lot of imperial periphery countries, third world countries. They don't trust us for good reasons. Like international relations based on something besides transactional profit extraction. Like there's more than one reason that's good.
Yes.
COVID is the perfect unsolvable by capitalism problem, like a global. Well, I would say that most disasters are unsolvable by capitalism, and then a little bit of mini socialism, communism, anarchism comes in, and people help each other, and then we all put it back together again for a couple of years, then it falls back apart, and we put it back together again for a couple of years, falls apart. Housing crisis, COVID, student loan crisis.
All of these things. Well, COVID isn't artificial. That one's like
Isn't caused
it is real.
by capitalism. It's continued by capitalism.
Yeah. Loans are fake. We've been on this
literally.
COVID shit a whole
Hey,
bunch.
I have a very non-COVID thing that I definitely want to frickin' talk about because no one else is gonna.
Let's
because
do
it seems like we're shooting our own in the foot, but I want to explain why no. So, article, super long. If you want to get into detail, Jesus Christ, they have a lot of details. And if you have ever been a person who's like thought or said like, oh, that person was on this program with this, who is involved with this, therefore, like, I don't trust them. I think that their motives are bad. Like, keep that in mind as we're going through this. So, Philosophy Tube, a channel that I like very much. Like, I watched them a bit. They helped me kind of sculpt out my idea of, like, what the fuck does, when I say capital L liberal, like, their video on, here's what liberalism is, helped me hugely. Also, was when they were a much, much, much smaller creator. It has been provably linked. We have now provably linked Abigail Thorne, who is the person behind BreadTube, and the British intelligence agency. Like, they are kind of, it's not.
Wait,
it's an
phrase that
indirect
again.
Funding.
You just
but
said
they are
Abigail Thorne is behind the British intelligence agency.
Is that what I said?
Do-over.
I said they're connected to. They're all right. Abby Thorne of Philosophy Tube takes money from the British government, and that is an issue. And if you look through the article and go, but wait, none of the things that Abby said are like awful, or they didn't say we should go shoot a Muslim in the mouth or anything. That's not even what the point is. The thing, if you are receiving information that is funded by X organization, you are going to consider X organization's interest. Even if they are not, you all know what soft power, you've heard that expression where it's not a gun to your head. It's the suggestion of, oh, if you would like to continue receiving work, getting TED Talks, getting put on TV, you better have X and Y opinions. I think that's kind of how ContraPoints' edge their revolutionary vigor got softened if they had it in the first place. They want to keep doing TED Talks. They want to keep being captain representative of all of socialism while never actually talking about any fucking socialism. So, in Abby's case, it's like the equivalent of the British CIA funds their stuff because they wanted them to do to material supportive of British COVID restrictions, which on its face in the US, you're like, fuck, I wish we could get some COVID restrictions. Think of how your message is changed by who funds it. The more connections that you have with the actual, the CIA is definitely an arm of the bourgeois. They go around the world, and anytime someone's doing a communism, they kill them. So, like, if you're taking money from an equivalent organization, in this case, they're talking about like Syria psyops and the way they would do that Britain would do like misinformation campaigns or exert soft power over Syria. The same exact tactics are being used in Britain. And if you read through this really long ass article, they will illustrate it much better than I can in my, like, I don't know, 2-minute summary. And this does not mean that I think Abby Thorne is like evil or like a British agent. Yes, they are now that in a literal sense. They are an agent of the crown now. And how can you argue that that's like good?
A thing I always, at some point, that it comes up as a what if of at what level would you, the individual, say, yes, I am taking this dirty money because it's transformative, and you only get one trip on
and
this
would
rock.
you even see it as dirty money?
That too.
Because the way I read this, I'd be like, I don't know, this looks innocent if you don't like pay attention or have any kind of like theoretical basis in like if your ideology is just based on let's all be nice to each other. If you're a liberal,
I'm going to use a different YouTuber that has, for the most part, nothing to do with politics, except it does, and it puts forward various things. James Hoffman, world barista champion, and runs the biggest YouTube coffee channel, and it's a ton of fun. Super nerd. It's great. And one of the things he does is because he has so many industry connections and does so many reviews, as far as I'm aware, he is very, very, very strict about disclosing everything. To the point where, like, he won't release certain reviews of things because, like, I am currently doing a project that I have an NDA and can't talk about, but all I can say is this, and I can't review that because it's a conflict of interest. And if he never said any of that and reviewed the thing anyway, he would have never gotten in trouble, ever. So, like, there is room for the individual, even if it's not quote-unquote dirty money. State where you're getting your shit. Declare it. Cite your sources.
Could you imagine if on Philosophy Tubes they say like, this is brought to you by the British Intelligence Agency?
I don't even mean it's like brought to you by...
Probably wouldn't even do anything. Nobody would even care. They'd be like, sure.
Well, there's a difference
like
between you outright say it and cite it. That at least gives you the plausible deniability of, I saw this, money came with this, here you go. There is nothing secretive about it, right? Part of being essentially a commie and lefty and the type of nerd that I am is, except in the most weird outlier of situations, non-personal information should always be out there. Everyone gets a better time when you have access to all of the info. And so when you're doing these long-form essays and Abby's citing all of these things, and then you choose not to cite something, that's where I have a problem, right? So this James Hoffman guy finally has started doing more reviews because he learned his audience is like, well, if I state the disclaimer of, here's this thing, here's where I have these conflicts of interest, I'm not going to do a recommendation, I'm just going to go through and say these things, this video is heavily biased. I'm okay with that. Like, isn't that what we want to encourage? You can never actually remove all bias. It's actually impossible. The greatest trick Fox News ever did was clinging to fair and balanced. It's impossible. The most hardcore of you and I or any other lefty or commie ever has bias, always. And the collective antidote to that is to share as much of our information and where our bias comes from as possible. That's the only answer.
So to take this back a step from the individual level, because I'm not horribly, and this isn't what you were suggesting, but I'm not horribly interested in like critiquing like, oh, what, not that I want to critique the content of what is coming out of Abby Thorne, but I heard somebody say a thing where they were like, oh, you brought up Fox News, like, oh, Tucker Carlson is paid to say X and Y. And I think it was fucking Jon Stewart, I remember was like, it's not that they're paid to say it, but if they didn't say it, someone else would be in the chair.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
These opinions, they have messages that they want to put out. And it's not that Abby Thorne they came to her and they're like, hey, we have this evil scheme. It's like, no, they've been making videos and they're like, oh, you make the kind of videos that we think would be useful for a psyop. And we would like to fund more of your videos so they get, and now YouTube, we'd like to algorithmically push your videos. And like, oh, Twitter, we would like to algorithmically push. I've linked the thing in the chat right now. It's called Very Important Documentaries, and it's Free Speech Extreme, where it sounds like it's irrelevant, but it just goes through and breaks down like, look, if you acknowledge power relations and who can say what where and how some speech is highlighted and de-emphasized and emphasized and shit, these things the reason that I can be not even upset, exasperated, the reason that like the Abby Thorne thing is not surprising to me, I guess becomes clear. It's not that a shadow cabal sits and develops literature to distribute to I mean, sometimes they do, but it usually is super obvious and like phony and people don't fall for it. But if you take people who are like organically already out there and then you, there's a word for it, there's a freaking Marxist word, I can't remember, where you just bring that into capital to be useful for capital. Like if you take something that could sort of maybe be harmful and then just kind of invite them in and make them a agent of the crown. Soft power. There's an hour-long freaking thing. It's highly edited and I consider highly entertaining. Peter Coffin's free speech X, the letter X, stream. It'll become relevant if you watch it to what I'm getting at. So, closing or 5-minute topic. I didn't even bring up Lindsay Ellis getting canceled. They're the other RedTube person, because the funny thing is, the Lindsay Ellis shit where she's like, I'm making because it's not that people decided to start attacking Lindsay recreationally again. She like quit that shit right when that story that I'm talking about came out, right when the
Yeah.
whole like Abby Thorne is connected to the British intelligence agency. So like the day before it, Lindsay Ellis is like, I'm quitting most things.
Yeah. Yeah.
She is funded. She's on PBS, and PBS I used to have a very high opinion of, but like I've listened to NPR and shit now, and I'm like, wow, ooh, this helps with my fucking
you loaned me your
programming.
car, so I'm driving, and I didn't fuck with any of the radio because I'm not a goddamn selfish piece of shit. So I'm listening to your NPR, and I'm listening to it going, I swear it wasn't like this 20 years ago.
I had to listen. Oh, anytime they get anywhere near talking about communism, socialism, USSR, etc. Like I listen to Freakonomics a lot because it's the show that happens to be on when I'm coming home, and I don't want to listen to pop radio. And they'll just do these weird breakdowns where it's like, oh yeah, you see, after this happened, like it just seems like are you missing the point on purpose? Or do you like really not? Are you really unable to connect two and two? Like Jad Abumrad, come on, man, you got to be able to make these connections. Are you just like gonna parrot this freaking script? And then you realize, well, yeah, like none of this is going to be like revolutionary content. If NPR was putting out like, oh, the proletariat must overthrow the bourgeoisie, like they wouldn't be put on air. It is public programming, and our state does not want rebellions. It doesn't mean they're evil and necessarily hate us. Any kind of civil unrest is not good for the status quo. So any media that would encourage that, it's not going to be put out on fucking the same network that is Sesame Street.
Yeah. All right. The quick one is, and this is for anyone listening, it matters to us for sure. Venmo, Cash App, and other payment apps to report payments of $600 or more. They will now be reported to the IRS. So this is an extension of that IRS shit we talked about previously. But in particular, this is targeting Cash App, Zelle, PayPal. I listened Cash App twice, but whatever. Any of those. Google Pay. The main thing to remember for all of this, let's see if I get canceled over this shit. If you have the option inside these apps, they tell you, are you just transferring money or is it for goods and services? Unless you have a damn good reason to make it goods and services, don't do that.
If you don't,
then
if
they
you
won't
aren't scared,
report
they're gonna
it.
fuck you. You do goods and services in case you think they're gonna not send you your thing.
Yeah, like if
but if it's someone you know.
If you're doing a type of thing where, like, okay, you're doing this huge fursuit payment and you really need the protection of someone's going to try to lie to you, hey, guess what? You can even do all of those things and PayPal will still fuck you. So really, don't do it. Seriously, at this point, like, if you, the individual, if you can get away with paying less tax, good. Don't do it. It doesn't go to anything that helps you. It doesn't go to anything that helps me. It goes to the military and killing fucking brown people overseas. It goes to the cops. It goes to drones. I'm done. I am so done. If it's not hard for you, the individual, to figure out how to safely for you pay less or no tax, do that. It is ethical and morally superior than paying tax. Federal tax. State and local is very different things, like, sincerely.
My state uses that shit to subsidize corporate tax that they don't pay, which is where most of our taxes go anyways,
so
to subsidize the
fuck that
tax
too.
not paid by other people. In Illinois, that's what's happening. Like, if there is any subsidy for the bourgeois in your state, that is where it comes from. This is from you. So this is where my freaking analysis recently, it helps. If you look, when you go because the Biden administration sells we will lowering the reporting threshold to $600 as a move to hurt billionaires and millionaires. And if you think about this along class lines, we keep saying, like, the government, both sides, Democrats and Republicans, benefit the bourgeois, the owning class. It's not because there's a shadow cabal of people. All the moves will generally tilt in their favor. Not 100% of them, but most of them. This is one of them. This just gets added to the pile. It's going to be 10 years from now, and we're being like, how come I can't declare bankruptcy for student loans, but a corporation can do crimes, declare bankruptcy, and it's like, fine. Oh yeah, Joe Biden in the 80s. How come if I make $601 on PayPal, I get a fucking W-2, which is like $600 is not even half a month of rent for most people. Oh yeah, Joe Biden in 2021. It's shitty Democrats
Wait,
or it was
Pepper.
shitty Republicans.
You're missing-
They both slant the same way.
You're missing the double tax too.
What is the other one?
PayPal charging you to use their services while not being a bank, while being governed by you, the individual, having to participate in these financial rules. But all of these other payment apps, like, it's a bit of a rabbit hole. But without going too deep into it, when you use Stripe or you use Amazon Pay or Google Pay or PayPal or Venmo or all of those things, the method of you and your client, or you're the client and the place you're giving money to, the relationship between you two is not incurring PCI compliancy. You're using a third party to assume that risk for you, because there actually are really strict laws and rules around this tech shit of payment transfer stuff, because I don't know if you all know this, but it was really easy to steal money digitally a while ago. Like, the big banks were like, oh, fuck. Anyone can do this. So this is one of the times where, like,
and had enough computer, just go take it.
Yep. So
Office Space, the movie.
you have PayPal charging you what? All of these payment processors all kind of caballed and agreed, but didn't, at 2.9% plus 30 cents is the cheapest you can go without doing crazy volume, and other places cost way more. And now you're going to get taxed on top of all of this, but PayPal is going to figure out how to escrow away or count the fees they take from you and not pay tax on it.
Of course not.
I
don't remember which of the tech bros was PayPal. Was that also Bezos or also Musk? I don't know.
PayPal was four of
It's one of the
them,
big
and
ones.
Peter Thiel.
Peter Thiel. Square is Jack, who's the Twitter guy.
PayPal is Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Upan,
Musk.
Max
There he is.
Levchin, and Luke Nosek. And every last one of those names I listed, those are 5 of the worst humans to have lived. Not that, like, them being gone will change anything, but in their actions and effect on us, they have perpetuated so much harm.
They've extracted more value from the proletariat than most.
Yes. Yes.
It's not that we morally think they're... I don't not like Elon Musk because I hate how he talks. I hate his hair. I hate everything about him, which I do. It's because of how how he's able to use his fucking influence and power to fuck up Bolivia. Like, am I wrong? Oh, no, he has a cobalt mine in fucking Africa, but...
How many civilian deaths is he responsible for the Tesla horse shit?
Oh my god. We were gonna talk about the movie Just Look Up.
No, we weren't, because I haven't
Don't
seen
Look
it
Up?
yet.
We aren't, yeah, but Jaguar hasn't talked about it yet. But this isn't a spoiler. There's the like tech weirdo stand-in character in that, and like, oh, so good. Like the way that actor does it, I'm like, they do it. They managed to capture the whole, like, the level of disconnect where it doesn't feel like they're even a person.
Nice.
We dehumanize people who are poor usually. I am more in favor of dehumanizing the ultra rich, because when you talk to them, it is impossible. Like, how do you relate to? How can they relate to you? Is the real question. They can't.
The only
They
way
don't make
they
these
relate to
Kabbalic
you
decisions.
is if you are in their presence and you make them realize immediately, oh, I can still die.
The things that help them are the things that directly hurt you, and vice versa. Your interests in your classes are so amazingly opposed that they wrote a whole book about it. This guy named Marx, like, literally, the thing that makes your life better, if you're an average person listening to this and not an ultra billionaire, is like, if you get a raise, like, your job treats you better. What makes Elon's fucking life better? If he treats all of his employees worse. It is a direct opposition. It is a direct contradiction, direct conflict that can't be. There's nothing around that. There's no, like, oh, we'll meet in the middle and we'll just treat you kind of shitty. Like, you know what I mean? It's not that I think he's a creep just on moral reasons. Or
Well,
just,
but if you're a
like,
billionaire,
knee-jerk
you
reasons.
also are statistically a massive fucking piece of shit and creep. Because
They're
to be
probably
a
also going
billionaire
to-
means you have to have this uncontrollable need to hoard and want more. And it's, as we said earlier, billionaires aren't focused on the money. It is about being the ruling class and power. And so this is why you get the Epstein ring and why all these billionaires are there. Because what's the one thing socially that almost every individual person, you get any group of people together, anywhere, what's something we all agree on? Hey, don't rape kids. So
yeah,
what's
don't
the
go to
one
the Epstein Island.
What's the one fucking that was unintentional. What's the one taboo? What's the one taboo that they have that's getting away with something via power? That.
Yeah, the one thing that incidentally the whole like QAnon conspiracy is weirdly correct about is there is a big billionaire child sex traffic ring, except it's not a secret and it's not for blood, it's just for sex and weird shit. And we have a list of all of the people who did it and who the main dude Epstein is dead and or killed, and then we have Ghislaine Maxwell who is found guilty. That's a person. And then why nothing is going to happen to Bill Gates, De Blasio? No, Bloomberg's definitely on there. I don't know if De Blasio is. Wrong mayor. There are many people who hold positions of massive power that we see on TV every other day telling us how to live our life, not telling us how, shaping how we will be forced to live our lives because they can actually pull the levers of power. And nothing. You're never going to get jack shit on those people. Why? Because we can't prove it? No, we can prove it. Because they didn't do it? And I did it. Because they are of a protected class that owns, they are so high above the courts. That's a fucking joke. Like, oh yeah, they'll fucking arrest Bill Gates and take him to prison.
Well,
it
and that
seems
kind of
like a
tells you
laughable
too, what's
idea,
his
doesn't
face?
it?
Movie producer shithead.
Weinstein.
Like, if there ever was a way
He's
to
made
tell
more
you
money from prison than I will ever make in my whole life.
I'm just saying as an example of yes, he had money and power, but it was still just Hollywood. So yeah, fuck that guy. All right, do you have anything else? I have one last thing. I'm going to read a headline.
Sure.
10,000 bees join protest in Chile. 7 police officers stung.
Hey, congratulations, Chile. They elected a pretty lefty dude, right?
I believe so. The only thing I want to point
Something
out
with
in this
Peru.
article, because it's CNN and it's fucking... So this was done as a protest thing. You can read the article, but aside from that, the thing that jumps out the most to me from this is some passersby were alarmed by the risk the bees posed to the public. It's dangerous for the people who are allergic to bees because they can cause death, one local said. Bees are outside! Bees as a species are older than us.
Is BEES terrorism?
There's our fucking title.
That's
Is
the
BEES
title.
terrorism?
Is BEES? I'll write that in my thing.
This has been Last Minute Politics. I've been Dragor.
I've been Pepper, and if you want to get creative with your protests and fucking shit up, fucking bringing a bunch of bees is not, not the worst idea. It's easy. You just have to stay away from the bees and you'll be fine.
You don't even have to stay away from the bees. You don't have to piss off the bees. If a bee stings you, it dies. So if you're getting stung by a bee, you have to look at it from the bee's perspective of, oh shit, must protect queen. I will die for this. 3, 2, 1, bye!
Bye!